Hi, I'm Alex Rack from Board Game Co.
And I'm Rikki. This is my second time being on the channel. I'm super excited to be here.
Today we're reviewing Trogdor the board game. This is a game that I have talked about on the channel before, but this is the first time that I'll be doing a full review, and I'll go over the quick how to play, brief intro of all that, and then Rikki and I will talk about the game and our thoughts and whatnot. And to that end, Trogdor the board game is ultimately a cooperative experience. It is a light, fun, cooperative experience that I think holds an appeal regardless of your familiarity with Trogdor. At least I can tell you that my kids now adore Trogdor when they previously could not have cared less until then. But ultimately this is a cooperative game where every single round you'll be trying to burninate the countryside, which it is very important that in life that you burninate the countryside. Trogdor will move around the board. What you're going to do is you're going to draw an action card every single round. Then you're going to compare that to the action card you already have. Pick one of the two, which will both give you a defined number of action points, as well as giving you a specific ability. So, for example, in this one, I am just going to take 7 action points. With each action point, I will move around the board, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, moving around to different locations. And other things I can do with my actions are...
Well, for one, let's say it was my turn, and I decided to move here. Then, for my second move, I could burninate this tile. But when you burninate a tile, flip it over, and then it shows you a burned in gray representative of what the tile that you did.
And your goal in this game ultimately is to just basically burn the entire countryside. That's your goal. You want to burninate the countryside. You want to burninate the houses. The peasants, when you burninate the peasants, that's nice as well, but it's not necessarily essential. And so each action you can use to burninate tiles, to move around the board, and to potentially burninate cottages. It's important to burninate the cottages. And by the way, this is adorable. So when we're in a cottage space, when you ultimately burninate the cottage, the top is going to flip and it's going to have a little fire burnination there. But in order to do so,
you can only do all the surrounding tiles. This does not mean the diagonal tiles. It only means the tiles touching it directly and the tile that's on before we can burninate it.
So effectively you have to burninate all the surrounding tiles and the tile it's on. Once you have done so, you can then burninate the cottage. The reason burninating cottages is important is because that's how peasants spawn. And the peasants spawning, because when you're done with your 7 actions, assuming we, let's say, burninate all these tiles, which would take more than 7 actions. So what you're going to do is you'd burninate the tile, you'd have that, and then you would draw an enemy card when your turn is done and do whatever the enemy movements are. So for example, the peasants, in this case, the peasants are moving downwards and repairing. So each peasant would move down and repair any burninated land, which slowly but surely tries to stop you from doing that. Other things that are getting in your way in this game are going to be the fact that your peasants over here, Trogdor is going to be trying to eat peasants. One of the actions you can spend is to chomp on peasants, and when you do so, you'll add them to your board over here. So if you chomp on a peasant over here, chomp, you add it to your life points. Peasants are going to spawn from your board to the board, which means you will eventually, slowly but surely, well, lose all your life, and that is one of the main ways you would lose the game. Your goal is to burninate things before you run out of peasant chompiness to ultimately win the game. That is a high-level overview of Trogdor. Anything specific I forgot you want to cover?
When there are peasants that run on to a cottage, then you put the fire hat on them, and whatever the enemy card was, they go in that line, and then they burninate every tile they step on.
So effectively, with the same enemy cards that cause peasants to move, you're going to draw one of them, and then they'll run around, following a specific path, burninating all the tiles that they touch on, before ultimately dying and going into the void. Like I said, a very family-friendly game where the peasants all burninate things and then die and go into the endless void. That's the family-friendly game we're reviewing today. Anything, so let's go into this. So there's a few other things going on in the game. There's every character is going to have their own unique character ability, as well as a unique item that will have a specific way you utilize it and a specific way you refresh it. But all these things are going to combine into Trogdor moving around the countryside, burninating things all the way to the ground, and eventually either winning or losing the game. So, Rikki, what are your thoughts?
I think the game is super cute. I absolutely loved it, though I kind of wish that they wouldn't add the green, that they wouldn't just make it gray, and they would make it a bit more like it's a fire there.
So you want the gray countryside to be more burninated, kind of like the cottages.
Yeah, like actually look like not just have a gray background.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have an even more deluxeified version. They actually do have more deluxeified versions of that, but I don't think they have any 3D terrain. I think it'd be cool to have completely fired up, because one of the coolest things about this game, and to be clear, there are different versions of this game, so if you go out and buy the game, understand there are different versions with different levels of how deluxeified the game is. This one has all the 3D painted miniatures, which include these adorable cottages that are both, well, a little cottage, and then also a burninated cottage at the same time. So that's absolutely adorable. Love those. But additionally, there are all these meeples. So I'll show you a few of these meeples over here that give you these Trogdor meeples that are different options to replace the standard components of the game. So this is a more standard version of the game.
In this one, it says Dagron instead of Dragon, because the guy that made it spelled it wrong, and it's super funny.
Yeah, something Rikki mentioned she wanted to cover is how in the rulebook there are lots of sections of the rulebook that have little written notes in it. So, for example, this whole rulebook looks like it's taped on, and then there's areas. Let me see if I can find something over here. So an example would be,
this one.
So over here, so it's written. Let me see if I can show you. We have over here, it's written Fiery Rage, meaning they had a lot of fun making the rulebook edited, like taped up and written in, as if Trogdor got his hands on the rulebook and decided to, well, get involved in your rulebook. And then in the final page we have, there, rulebook fixed, you're welcome, SB, Strong Bad the Burninator. But that is basically so fine. So anything, so you cover the fact that you want those to be more or whatever, but who would you recommend this game for?
I would recommend it for people that like dragons and think it would be fun to do this, but not super boring to play it while your kids enjoy it.
What do you mean by that?
Like when we first reviewed Creature Comforts. This is a game that everyone can enjoy, so if you think you're going to enjoy it, you should get it, especially if you have kids, because we all love this game a lot.
What's a good age range in your opinion?
I just think it should be at least 5. To me, it's just 5+.
5+. Well, I agree with that, because I like the game a lot. I'd completely play this. I don't know if I'd play it at game night, but I'd play it as a gateway game with. Maybe I would play at game night. It's a lot of fun to run around. So the whole strength of this game is the fact that you're burninating things, which is already a bizarre thing to begin with. The idea that you're running around the board, burninating stuff on fire, is not something you typically do. For instance, Pandemic, one of the most famous cooperative games at all times, is all about saving the world. And now you're Trogdor, and you're trying to destroy the world, which is a slightly whimsical but also slightly dark theme, which already makes it appealing. And then there's other aspects of the game of the survival. Honestly, what it does is it takes a theme that works well. It takes a theme that hasn't been made into a game until now, Trogdor, and then it gives it a cooperative little package that actually is rewarding to play, whimsical in its appeal, and different in the goals that you're trying to do, which means I would not be averse to playing this at game night if someone said, hey, I wanted to play Trogdor. It would probably not be my first pick, but I would not be averse to playing it at all. So I agree with your 5+. Anything in particular you didn't like about the gameplay?
Not really. I don't really think that there's anything wrong with it. It's completely perfect, but if you were wondering what these figures are, the knights also walk around the board in the movement path, and if they hit Trogdor, they take a life. Same with the archers. They go this way, in whatever direction they end up facing, like let's say the movement path was this. Then they would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's say Trogdor's here, then they would shoot Trogdor.
Basically, the knights cause a damage to Trogdor if they land in his space at any point, versus the archers shoots Trogdor if Trogdor is in the whatever direction they are pointing, either up or down, or left or right. So, and Trogdor does have a way to hide. He could go to the mountains and lay down as an action, where he is then invulnerable from the various knights and archers.
And there's one card that's a keeper of Trogdor that allows you to hide in there. And if you were wondering, can the archers shoot peasants? The answer is no, but there is a character that gives you that ability.
Yeah, so all the characters and abilities, one of the things I like, I mean, you've watched my stuff, well, maybe you've watched my stuff, I like characters and abilities in board games. It's one of my favorite things, and every single action card has both action points and unique ability, and that's going to be variable every single round. And then every game, you start with a character and an action card that give you different things that shift up the rules, shift up your ability to whatever. Additionally, there is an aspect of the Troghammer character, which is just a way of adjusting for the difficulty level by adding more knight movement in between rounds. You'll put Troghammer cards into the action deck, and whenever you draw one, you'll get extra movements both for knights as well as Troghammer himself, thus upping the difficulty level.
I thought that was a bit overwhelming at first, but that's because we did it on the second time I played the game. I still think that's super cool that they have a harder level if you're feeling it's too easy. But you should at least play the game at least 2 times in normal mode before you're 100% sure you want to try it out, unless you're already very sure by then.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In general, the game is, I would say that without Troghammer, the game is accessible enough that even if you're not trying to encourage your kids or whoever you're playing with to play optimally, you'll still have a reasonable chance of winning. So to be more clear, if you're playing with a bunch of kids and you don't want to tell them what to do, which I do encourage you not to tell your kids what to do in every cooperative game, then I think taking Troghammer out presents a decent level of difficulty where the combination of your kids making suboptimal choices and the game itself will add to a decently balanced experience. But like Rikki said, if you find after multiple plays that you have it in control and you want to escalate that difficulty, throwing in Troghammer and upping that difficulty is a fun way to keep the game fresh while adding more challenge and while still burninating the countryside everywhere you go.
But that is the game. But sometimes this is the fire hat for the regular wooden meeples.
There you go.
And for the fire, and for cottages on fire in there, it's just double-sided.
Yeah, that's the meeple version. I prefer the miniature version myself, but one of the pluses of the meeple version is there are different versions of Trogdor you can play with in the meeple version.
Yeah, this is the first one he drew. It didn't really work out, though. I like the beefy arms. This is another guy's. This is
Trogdor the dragon.
Yes, that actually looks really good. And this is the original, the regular Trogdor.
Yeah, and that's basically it. That would be our review of Trogdor the board game. This is a game that we do recommend checking out. Great family weight game, great gateway game, and honestly, if you're just a fan of Trogdor at all, this is ridiculously fun to give a shot. Other than that, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments down below. And until next time, have a good one. Trogdor! Trogdor! Burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants, burninating the people. Trogdor! We had to, I'm sorry, we had to.